All right, even as states reopen, coronavirus continues to have a huge impact on all of our daily lives. Take a look at the numbers. There are more than 1.2 million cases in the United States. A record 20.5 million jobs were lost in 1 month, the month of April. And children in 48 states are facing school closures through the end of the academic year. Here to answer some of your questions about health, money, and family, I'm joined by Dr. Darria Long, emergency room physician and clinical assistant professor at the University of Tennessee. Welcome. Also, Robbie Ludwig, who is a psychotherapist and personal finance columnist for the Washington Post. Michelle Singletary, good to see you both. Good to see all three of you. All right, welcome. So, Michelle, you first. A viewer writes, I'm going to be laid off in the coming weeks. How should I organize my finances?
So what I've been telling people is that if you have had a disruption in your income or laid off, you've got to triage your bills. So you have to take care of the most critical bills first. So that's the roof over your head, food on the table, and if you're still trying to, look for a job. But other than that, everything else has to go. And that means that maybe your credit card bills don't get paid. And you need to call your lenders and let them know that I can't make this payment on my credit card because I'm out of work. But take care of the things that are most necessary, the most critical. And unfortunately, you're going to have to let a lot of other stuff go.
Right. And so when it comes to utilities and all that, there are some utility companies that will kind of work with you too, but you have to call them and let them know.
That's exactly right. So call everybody and find out who can give you a break. And if you've been on budget billing and things like that, that might help you as well. But just all your lenders, all your creditors, anybody that you owe, definitely your landlord, if you're renting, and let them know what's going on. If you're in a federally subsidized housing or federally backed housing, you'll get a break on that rent, at least up till July. So just call everyone and just pay the things that you absolutely didn't pay. You can't get a break on your groceries, so you've got to pay that. But everything else, you try to take a break in payment.
Well, good. Hopefully everybody, folks who need it will find a lot of compassion out there. All right, so Robbie, a viewer writes, is it appropriate to ask someone to wear a mask, even if it's a stranger?
I think it is, especially now. It's what they are recommending that we do. The CDC is recommending it. It's really all in the approach. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way and approach somebody where it causes an argument. I would even recommend having an extra mask or extra mask with you so that you can provide it to somebody and just say, hey, listen, we all want to get through this together and do it as quickly as possible. And this will help move us in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, that's a kind way of doing that. Dr. Long, Michelle asked, what do you know about this mysterious illness in children that's similar to Kawasaki disease? Should I be concerned as a parent?
Yeah, hi, Fred. And Michelle, this is a great question. I think this new kind of Kawasaki-like disease, for myself as a parent too, it's made me more vigilant. Because up until this point, we've been saying that COVID causes less severe illness in children overall. And that is still fair to say, absolutely. But I think this Kawasaki-like syndrome does highlight that there are some children for whom, if there is a tie with COVID and this Kawasaki syndrome, could be making them definitely more ill. And it means that we need to be more vigilant and conscientious of how to make sure we're protecting our kids as we start releasing lockdown.
Michelle, Joe asks, how long does unemployment insurance last, and are there any other resources after it expires?
So how long it lasts depends on what state you live in. So all of those directions are by state. So for example, if you lived in Florida, you get 26 weeks. Minnesota, 26 weeks. Minnesota, you get the maximum benefit, $740. So you have to check your state unemployment to see what the maximum weeks are and the maximum payment. And then on top of that, the CARES Act added an extra $600 a week until the end of July. And then you get an extra 13 weeks. So definitely contact your state office, apply for the benefits, even if you're denied. file an appeal, because a lot of these systems, they're not catching up with a lot of things. It's hard to get into them. Maybe you answered a question incorrectly, so keep trying. And then try the community resources, the food banks. If you're a member of a church, contact them. I mean, this is a time to call on the folks in your community and neighbors and maybe your friends and family and say, I've lost my job, I need help. We got to pack our pride during this time. It's okay to ask for help. And if someone calls you, and let's say someone calls you and they've not been very good with their money, and you know that, they've been a little irresponsible. This is not the time to wag your finger at them. This is not the time to do that. You help people where they are. And when this is over, there will be programs and things that help people get back on track and maybe help them make better financial decisions.
Yeah, make comforting a priority. All right, we've got so many more questions coming from viewers. Stay with me. We're going to answer them in just a moment. But first, a question about going back to work. A viewer writes, my employer has started their reopening process and has asked me to report to the office next week. What kind of questions should I be asking my boss to make sure I feel safe when I return to work? We're going to answer that. To help us answer, here's a CNN law enforcement analyst and security consultant, Jonathan Wackrow.
Great question and very relevant, as many others like yourself may soon be returning back to work. The concept of feeling safe in the workplace is very subjective, and only you can answer the question of what is it going to take to be safe in your return. I encourage you to open up dialogue with your employer to discuss what concerns you may have upon returning to the office. The second part of this is understanding that employers are faced with mandatory and discretionary decisions around health security. So things that you should be asking directly of your employer include, how have they prepared the office? And are they following the CDC guidelines? Are there any new health screening protocols that have been implemented, such as temperature checks or health declarations that you need to be made aware of? Are there policy changes, such as modified sick leave, instituted during this time of crisis? Have they instituted any social distancing plans coupled with physical space adjustments? And are they providing you and your colleagues with the appropriate PPE, such as masks and gloves, for your safety? Understand, at the end of the day, any plan that's put forth today is going to change over time. Employees and employers have a shared fate when it comes to the success of health and safety initiatives within the workplace. I urge constant communication between you and your employer to ensure a successful and safe return.
All right, welcome back. Right now, our panel is here answering your questions about health, money, and family. Let's welcome back Dr. Darria Long, psychotherapist, Robbie Ledwick, and personal finance columnist for the Washington Post, Michelle Singletary. All right, ladies, Robbie, you first. John writes, I was recently laid off and money for food has been extra tight. How do I explain this situation to my children without scaring them? I think everyone can relate to this because when the kids are home, I mean, the food bill has become like the biggest bill in most of our households. But, money is tight. So what should he say to his kids?
Such a great question. And I think it's important to acknowledge the reality, to say, listen, we're going through a tough time financially as a family. We are going to get through this together. I'm going to make sure that we are all taken care of. And let's figure out a way that we can all do our part to make this as easy as possible for everyone. The most important point is to underscore that they will get through it together as a family and not to trigger any fear in the children.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Long, Maureen from Florida asks, how safe is going to the dentist? What type of precautions should I ask about or look for?
Yeah, so the good thing about going to the dentist is among all the different work jobs out there, the dentists are probably the most focused on how to prevent the spread of germs in the first place, even in the non-COVID era. So I think that going to the dentist is perfectly safe to do. I think most dentists are already employing a lot of these strategies, but you're going to want to do kind of the same things we're doing in many places. Try to wait in your car, not wait in the waiting room. Make sure that you're wearing a mask when you're not when you don't have to have the mask on at that point. But I think going to the dentist, preventive care in general, to your doctor, to your dentist, those are things we should not be delaying at this point.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, Sharon writes, should I be saving money while on unemployment? If so, what's the best way to do that?
So I don't know too many people on unemployment who have any extra money to save, but perhaps you're part of a partnership, you're married, and you can still make it on your spouse's salary, and then the unemployment helps contribute to that. Then sure, try to save what you can for the time where the unemployment runs out, because it will run out. I mean, even though the CARES Act put in some extra time for people in terms of being able to collect the money, but at some point, usually about the way that it's going to work now, probably by the end of the summer, that's when we're really going to hit the wall unless there is policy changes and more benefits coming. So if you can shave off to save, sure, do that. And can I just jump in about the whole thing about the kids?
Yeah.
Because, I'm home with teens, young adults. Cut my lights out. I'm just saying, cut my lights out. So I think the older the children are, I think you can have some more candid conversations with them about, hey, listen, we are in this together, but I need you to do some things like, why do you need to open up my refrigerator and look in there all the time? You know what's in there. Open it up, get what you need, close my refrigerator door. I mean, this is a good time to have those money talks that you've not had before. Yeah. And, you can show them what happens. And this is how you can explain to them, this is why we need an emergency fund. This is why you need an emergency fund, even as a student. This is real live trouble that you can use as a tool to teach your children how to handle money and turn your lights out.
Yeah, here's something I tried. I told my kids one night, I was like, okay, kitchen closed. Really mostly because I was, been in the kitchen all day cooking, it seemed. But they all looked at me like I was crazy and didn't even buy it. So, it wasn't very convincing. Because they're back to opening the refrigerator and just staring at it and hoping something jumps out. It's all of our struggles right now. All right, please stand by. We're going to answer more questions from you, viewers at home, in just a moment. But first, a question about going back to work. A viewer writes, my workplace has reopened and employees have been asked to come back into work, but my child's daycare is still closed and I don't have any other childcare options. I'm scared I will lose my job if I don't go into work. What should I do? To help us answer that question, here is CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Shan Wu.
Two things. First, a lot of states have actually expanded their unemployment benefits so you can use them, even if you're not unemployed, to pay for childcare while you go back to work. Number two, there's new federal legislation called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That legislation lets you use paid family leave and paid sick leave to care for your child. That way you can actually go back to work but take the leave and get paid while you're on that leave to take care of your child. So if you're getting ready to go back to work and you're worried about not having any child care and the child's school is closed, as many are, then look into those two things. Expanded unemployment benefits and whether you can utilize family and sick leave to take paid time off to care for your child.
All right, welcome back. We've received some great questions from you all at home, and so now we've got some answers on health, money, and family. Let's bring back our panel. Dr. Long, Susan from Wisconsin writes, now that golf courses, beaches, and parks are reopening, how far can the wind carry the virus? Is 6 feet of social distancing enough?
So Fred, this is actually brings up the theoretical risk, and then we want to talk about the actual risk. So theoretically, especially if it's windy, the virus can be carried much further than 6 feet. When the wind is involved, then all models become kind of unpredictable. That's the theoretical risk. The question I think Susan's really asking is, what's the actual risk that I will catch the infection? And I just saw a recent study out of China. They looked at about 1,200 people who had caught coronavirus, and of those people, only one was attributed to an outdoor transmission. So what that tells me is that yes, theoretically it's possible, but that your risks really of catching it outdoors are much less. Of course, Fred, that really does depend on density. So yes, walk with your family, go for a run, that's fine, not a lot of density of people. Be careful though, if you have 20 or 30 people all gathered together, then saying, oh, but we're 6 feet apart, that's not enough of a protective for me. So remember, density is just as important really as distance.
So outside there's a feeling that it weakens or dissipates?
So it can, yes, absolutely. And it's the sort of thing that it can blow on you, but mainly if you're directly in line from somebody running right behind them on a bicycle right behind them, or big density.
All right, Robbie, John writes, one of my friends lost a parent to coronavirus. What's the best way I can be supportive?
Well, the best way to be supportive is to reach out and let your friend know that you're available. And listening is so powerful. To ask your friend what they need from you at this time. And if you have a special memory of a parent or somebody who's lost, share that memory with your friend. And don't forget to follow up a month down the road, 6 months down the road, because that's when the grief can really hit.
Oh, yeah. Michelle, Jeff from Massachusetts asks, will we have to pay taxes on our stimulus checks at the end of the year?
No, there are no taxes on this stimulus payment that came through the CARES Act. And you don't have to pay this year or next year. There are no taxes. You don't have to pay it back. And it doesn't impact a refund that you would get next year, because people don't realize that this is actually an advance credit for your 2020 tax return, which you'd file next year. So that's the great news. And it won't be reduced if you owe taxes as well. The only way that they will take some of the money is if you owe back child support.
Okay. Dr. Long, Jerry from Texas writes, I travel 2 or 3 weeks out of the month. How should I clean my luggage? Do I need to leave it outside my home and hotel room?
So I consider luggage kind of a public surface, just like anything else, just like those elevator buttons. You can look at your airplane, you see your suitcase on the ground there. So even non-COVID situation, treat it like a public surface. Bring it, don't put it on your bed, leave it on the floor, get your clothes out of it, set it to the side, wash your hands, and you'll be fine. You don't have to take any other additional measures beyond that.
Okay. Robbie, a viewer, writes, I've been feeling lonely, depressed, and anxious. Is this normal, or should I seek professional help?
Well, it is completely normal, and you can still seek professional help, because you don't need to be clinically depressed or clinically anxious in order to benefit from therapy. So I would recommend anyone who's dealing with challenging emotions, now's the time to embrace telehealth, reach out and benefit from those services. But certainly if somebody is feeling depressed or anxious for 2 weeks or more, and they notice a change in their appetite and their sleep pattern, that they're not able to do the things that they normally do, they should definitely contact their doctor.
And this is Mental Health Awareness Month, so there are a lot of resources that are available, and there are lots of outlets that are letting you know about those resources. Thank you so much to all of you. Michelle, Dr. Long, Robbie, good to see you. Continue to be well. Can't wait to have you back, because we keep getting a whole lot of really great questions about coronavirus. And here's another one, like what happens after the pandemic? Watch the post-COVID-19 world. Fareed Zakaria GPS special tomorrow morning at 10 right here on CNN. And thank you so much for joining me all day. I'm Fredricka Whitfield. The newsroom continues with Ana Cabrera right after this.